We're all live now.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Leicestershire and Rutland Safer Communities Strategy Board. There's quite a few on the call. I think most of us know each other, so if you just want to introduce yourselves when you speak rather than going through the list, otherwise it takes up too much time of the meeting. And just to introduce Christine Wise, who's now the new Vice Chair from Rutland, as we're a joint board now, so just to welcome her to her first meetings. You just want to read out the apologies?
Yeah, we've had apologies from Sharon Cook and Councillor Sarah Russell. We've also had apologies from Chief Inspector Johnny Starbuck from Leicestershire Police. But as a substitute, we've got Chief Inspector Lindsay Madeley Harland, who I've seen on the line. So welcome to her.
Thanks, Ewan. Okay, we'll go on to item 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting, starting on page 3. So anything on page 4? Anything on page 5? Anything on page 6? Anything on page 7? Page 8? And page 9. Are we all happy to sign those minutes off? Okay, thank you. Okay, on to item 4, the action log. So just going through 1, we're still waiting for that. Item 2 on the log, I think that's now completed, isn't it? I think Jamie's here this morning as well. So we can probably close item 2.
That's right, yeah, we should be able to cover that off after today's meeting.
Okay, and then item 3, still waiting for that. Item 4, we can probably close now, can't we? That's been sent out to members.
Chair, it's Les.
Yeah.
Just one point on action 3, which Ewan possibly could follow up for us, because John Richardson was the strategic director for Blaby, and he's now joined Harborough as chief exec. So that position may need to be changed.
Okay. Do you know who the new person is yet, or has it not been recruited? Okay.
I've been given the name of somebody who's a temporary replacement, so I can contact them just to make sure that work is being continued.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're happy to close 4. Oh no, we haven't got the data yet, have we? So we still need to. Have we got that data? Have we had that sent to us yet, Ewan? No, we haven't had that data yet, have we?
No, we haven't had the public health data, no.
Okay, so we need to keep that open. 5 is still ongoing. Probably 6 we can close after this meeting. Ian's here today. 7 we can probably close. And 8 we can probably close if everyone's happy with that. So there's a few we can close off there. Someone's happy with that. Okay, anyone got any declarations of interest? No. Okay, if everyone's happy, we're just going to jig the agenda around a bit so people can get off. So I'm proposing to take item 9 first today, which is the antisocial behaviour update, pages 23 to 44. So we'll take that first and then we'll follow the agenda as it is, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, so we'll do item 9 first, pages 23 to 44, and I'll hand over to Gurjit.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate jiggling the agenda around. Really short note here, really, on antisocial behaviour, just a bit of an update on some of the work that's going on across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, actually. So the government has launched a new ASB action plan, putting greater focus on how ASB is managed, and there's a real emphasis on vulnerable victims and managing perpetrators. There's loads of information in there, from empty shops and begging. There's going to be an amendment to the Vagrancy Act, right through to ASB within the home and the impact that has, as I say, on particularly vulnerable victims. As a result of that, just to say as well that the new action plan puts greater emphasis and what's the word I'm looking for? I've completely lost it. But on OPCCs, so the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office will have a lot more duties, that's a word, around some of the work that we deliver going forward. So I'm having conversations with the office currently on how we take this forward. So linked into that as well is the work around the new system potentially. So we've devised a business case to look at whether we continue with Sentinel, which is the antisocial behaviour case management system, or whether we move to an alternative system. Now, that has now gone to the ASB strategy group, who have agreed that it goes forward to chief officers across the districts and boroughs and the city and Rutland, and then it will be taken to Strategic Partnership Board executive in January. To date, everyone has agreed that we do look at an alternative. We haven't reviewed the Sentinel system ever since we've had it. All the details are in that business case, but I just wanted to put it on the table for members of this board to ensure that you're aware of it, and we'll update you as we go forward. And that was really all I wanted to say, Chair, unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Gertrude. I did read through the business case, and we definitely need to review where we are, but obviously it's down to all the partners about how they move forward. Do we know when a decision's likely to be made?
So I'm due to go to the chief execs meeting. So officers are updating their chief executives, and then we will answer any questions that the chief executives will have, and then the final decision will go to SPB exec in the new year. And if the agreement is that we do move to look at an alternative system, that's when the business plan will be devised in terms of the project plan, the project management plan, looking at all the detail of the hows and the whats and who will lead certain things, who will procure a new system. So I think it's going to be a massive piece of work, but I think it's a piece of work that we do need to do. And as I say, it does tie into the new toolkit, because that very much looks at the importance of data, updating victims, which with the current system we are having issues with. So time-wise, it's all very timely. Okay,
and obviously you'll come back to board once we've moved a bit further forward. Once we've got
absolutely, we'll bring the project management report to you. We'll keep you updated throughout the whole process.
Thanks, Gertrude. Is there any other questions or comments on this? Rick?
Yeah, it's just a reminder, we've got Jamie Osborne that started in the position of system coordinator, and I'm just thinking it might be opportune just to introduce Jamie at this point.
Yeah, that's fine. Is Jamie there?
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'll just turn my camera and see me. There you go. Yeah, good morning. So yeah, thank you, Rick, and thank you, Chair, for the introduction. I've been with the council now since the end of October, started on the 31st of October. I do know some people on the call. I worked with Leicestershire Police for 30 years, retired in July. So I'm doing a lot of work with Vantage, which, as Gertrude rightly said, is the current ASB system, but also obviously looking and leaning towards a new system, which is called ESINS, if it's agreed at the meeting early next year. But yeah, a lot of work to be done, which I'm undergoing at the moment, working along the 10 partnerships and getting out and about, meeting as many people as I can. So thank you for the introduction, and good to meet you all.
Thanks, Jamie. Were you an MPA commander?
I was.
Yeah, I recognise you. I do recognise you now. So
thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We'll be seeing a lot more of you as we work through this business case.
Absolutely.
Okay, any more questions for Gertrude on this paper? Will apologise for my voice at the moment. I'm trying not to cough on camera. Okay, so thanks, Gertrude. I know you've got to go off at some point. So if we go back to the agenda, onto item 6, the Prevent Regional Update, and I think Ian's on the call with us, so I'll hand over to you, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm just going to, let me just load a slide a second. Can we see that?
Yeah, that's gone on screen now.
Yeah, lovely. So yes, so just for the benefit of everybody on the call, if you've not met me before, I'm Ian Stubbs. I work for the Home Office. I'm the Prevent Regional Advisor for the East Midlands. I was asked last time to come and talk about the new Prevent Duty guidance, which unfortunately I think the meeting finished before my slot, so I missed it. But here I am anyway. So I just wanted to really update on the new Prevent Duty guidance, which was published in September but becomes statutory on the 31st of December this year. And just go through some of the key changes, really, which you'll be very pleased to hear don't or shouldn't impact on you too significantly. I think it's also just an opportunity to remind members of the group where the Prevent Duty comes from. So the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act 2015 creates the general duty on specified authorities, of which obviously local authorities are one, that they must have in the exercise of their functions due regard to the need to prevent people from being drawn into terrorism. What's lesser known, and I always point out when I talk about the Prevent Duty guidance, is actually there is a statutory power within that Act for the Secretary of State, the Home Secretary, to issue statutory guidance under Section 29. So it's just that the point I want to make is that the Prevent Duty guidance isn't guidance in the truest sense of the word. It's everything within the guidance document is statutory for specified authorities. Whereas some people think because it says guidance, it's something we should just consider, but it's not, it's statutory. I've got 3 slides on the key updates. Not surprisingly, the Independent Review of Prevent published earlier this year. All 34 recommendations were adopted by government. Therefore, it's not a surprise to see the wording of the new Prevent Duty guidance very much reflects the content of the Independent Review of Prevent, and in effect is our attempt to reflect the Independent Review of Prevent into practice for local partners. We've changed the first objective in line with the Independent Review to tackling the ideological causes of terrorism. This is talking to the point that William Shawcross made, that Prevent is part of the national CT strategy and as such should be working in the CT space. And there was a sense of maybe mission creep that a lot of the work had leached into areas of cohesion and integration, and this is trying to bring it firmly back into the counter-terrorism space, which I think is the right thing to do. That's not to say none of that other work isn't important, because it clearly is, but it's just not for Prevent. It introduces a concept of reducing permissive environments, which is sort of threefold, really. So this is an amalgamation of what we used to call Prevent problem solving, Prevent disruptions, and the venue hire and IT policy. So there's three elements to the reducing permissive environments. It puts a requirement on specified authorities to minimise the harm and influence of extremist influencers by reducing their opportunities to utilise public spaces. So any publicly owned buildings, venues, etc. should have a robust venue hire policy. And I know that's something that Leicestershire County Council have been working very hard to get there. You should also have a robust IT policy that prevents people from accessing extremist material online in council-owned libraries, internet cafes, all that type of stuff, that your own IT systems. And then thirdly, it's this concept of being proactive around minimising the harm and influence of those organisations that we consider to be extremists. So there's sort of 3 elements to that. There's a lot of talk in the new PDG about intervention thresholds, and there's just one point I want to make on this. William Shawcross said there should be one consistent proportionate threshold applied across Prevent, across all ideologies and radicalisation concerns, and that clearly is something that everybody would agree with. We should be applying the same threshold. The point I want to make is we're not trying to discourage people from making a referral in the first place. I think that's really important. So we're measuring this in terms of the other end of the system, so in terms of the interventions and the outcomes from Channel and other CT managed spaces. We don't want to discourage people with very little knowledge or understanding of the nuances of this to not make a referral because they don't think it's CT. Make the referral and let the professionals make the decision about what is and what isn't Prevent relevant, I think is the message. There's a lot of, I should have said right at the beginning, Chair, I'm summarising 90 odd pages into sort of 10 minutes, so I'm leaving out by default more than I'm putting in, but there's a lot of talk all through the document around terminology and particularly around vulnerability and susceptibility. The point I want to make here is that Prevent isn't just about safeguarding of vulnerable people. It's a much broader system, and there's a point that actually everybody who goes out and commits an act of violent extremism has a degree of agency. They, on any given day, get out of bed in the morning, walk out the door and make a conscious decision to go and do something. Now, for some people, that's driven by vulnerability. For other people, it's driven entirely by ideology, and there is no vulnerability present at all. It's just such an ideological driven belief that they go and do what they do. So we feel that the use of the term susceptible to radicalisation is more accurate than the term vulnerable to radicalisation, because not everybody is vulnerable, and that's sort of talking to the point on that first objective that we're talking about, ideological causes of terrorism, and bringing this back into that CT space. The new Prevent Duty guidance, I guess the one new thing that it introduces is something we've called a security threat check, but in essence, I would be disappointed, and I know this certainly isn't the case in Leicestershire, if people didn't do this anyway. It's just making sure that whatever activity you have in your delivery plan can answer those three questions. So is this mindful of the UK's current terrorism extremism threat picture, and obviously by default Leicestershire's current terrorism extremism threat picture? Is whatever action you're proposing proportionate, and is it designed to reduce the threat of terrorism or terrorist adjacent narratives? And if you can't answer those three questions, yes, then I would question why is that action in the delivery plan in the first place. And that's just trying to tie people down into thinking more about, with limited resources, making sure those resources are focused where they need to be. We've introduced much more robust due diligence processes for both civil society organisations we work with, but also a requirement within the duty for specified authorities, and therefore by default local authorities, to have their own robust due diligence processes and not commission organisations who have or do align or support extremist narratives. And again, you know, that can happen sometimes by accident. I doubt very much whether any local authority would do that intentionally, but there is a requirement there for a bit more due diligence process. There's a big focus on training, as you would expect. We are introducing a standards and compliance unit within the Home Office. Actually, it's within the Counter Extremism Commission, who are going to run this on our behalf. So in effect, it will be a place where anybody who has a concern about the way a Prevent case is being managed can contact the standards compliance unit for a bit of independent oversight and investigation into the way their case has been managed. What we are really, really clear on is this isn't replacing any local HR complaints processes about the way staff. This is very much a process driven. So it's not to complain about the way a member of staff has dealt with something. It's a way to complain about the way the system might have dealt with something, and to look into that. A lot of links to support and guidance, again, as you would expect. The final slide on this. So we've removed the extremism definition from the document, which came from the 2016 counter-extremism strategy, and there's a lot of talk in there now, but we're using terminology and wording along the lines of narrative that can be reasonably linked to encouraging people participating in terrorism. So if it would fit that definition, then extremism would be in scope for Prevent. If it can't, it won't be. There's a lot in there about risk assessments and partnership plans, and there's a chunk around tightening of local governance again. My knowledge of Prevent in Leicestershire, there's no concerns around any of that from my perspective. What does this mean? Very obvious statement there. We don't think it confers any new functions or responsibilities on any specified authority. We've tried to reflect good practice into the new duty guidance. And we don't anticipate it's going to result in any particular additional burden. Maybe a little bit of refocusing here and there, and some things to think about, but it shouldn't be too burdensome for you. And then just for mention, alongside the Prevent Duty guidance, which is statutory, we produce a Prevent Duty toolkit for local authorities, which this is the guidance in the true sense of the word. So this is what we think good looks like and it does three things really. It looks to identify good practice in it and best practice, identifies key changes from the previous iteration in one document, and suggests what we think good looks like, accepting that there's a proportionality element to this. So what good looks like for Leicestershire County Council is going to be very different to what good looks like for Manchester City Council, for example. So we need to just be mindful of that, which I guess is why I've got my role to be that person to advise. And then just finally, Chair, on the 11th of March, I've got a meeting in the diary to come and see Gurjit and Anita to do our annual benchmarking assurance exercise. We will then produce a report which will be sent out to the Chief Exec sometime, probably end of April, early May. Depends how quickly I can write 20 local authorities reports. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for coming back. I know we finished a bit early last time, didn't we? So we missed you. Okay, Gurjit.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Ian. That was really comprehensive update. And we do work closely with Ian, so it's great to hear that the Home Office have got no concerns about us. I just thought it might be helpful to give a little bit of local context around some of this work. So I went to our corporate management team yesterday with what we're doing across Leicestershire County Council, and corporately the management team have agreed the venue hire policy. So we will be sharing that with districts and boroughs probably after Christmas. So just a little bit I want to add in there around communication, localities, who they can contact if they've got concerns, if once a room's been hired out to an organisation, for example, under false pretexts, who they can contact and what they can do, and then we'll disseminate that. In terms of the partnership work, just to advise everybody that Blaby now leads for the districts and boroughs. So Blaby worked very closely with us at the county council in terms of getting comms out and taking forward priorities from the districts and boroughs. And there is a Leicestershire and Rutland Prevent Steering Group, which Ian is linked into, as am I. So we do disseminate and communicate everything that comes out of there. And then just finally, what I wanted to mention was Martin's Law, which is around protect, not prevent. And this is about venues and ensuring that they're safe. And there's all sorts of things around it, numbers, how big the venue is, etc. But I just wanted to raise it because people may have heard of it. And we're on it, we're working on it. Corporately, we're looking at potentially our emergency planning resilience forums and teams to take that responsibility on. So again, we'll communicate that across the county, and a lot of that work will be LLR. If we're unfortunate enough for something to happen locally, we need to make sure that we've got all the correct processes and policies in place, and we will approach it as we would any other emergency planning kind of event. So just a bit of local context there. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Gurjit. Les?
I just wondered if Gurjit wanted to name the lead officer from Blaby District, just so I know who she is, but just so members know if they see that name, why they're seeing that name, please.
Yep, Carol Parker.
Who is utterly brilliant, by the way.
Oh, she is, yeah.
She is astonishingly brilliant.
Thanks, Les. Neil?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. I was interested in wanting to have a look at the toolkit for local authorities booklet, and I just wondered if that could be made available to share, certainly with me and with anybody else that might be interested in having a view of it.
Yeah, it's available on gov.uk. I'm sure whoever does the admin for the group can circulate it.
Yep, you'll be able to send that link out, Neil, for people to have a look at.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Ian?
Could I just take the opportunity to just mention one more thing, Chair, while I'm up here?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention the Israel-Hamas conflict, really, in terms of prevent. Our director, Michael Stewart, has publicly said on a number of occasions recently that he considers the current conflict to be the single biggest radicalising risk in the UK since 9/11, and possibly even bigger than 9/11. And if that is true, then the system, i.e. the CT system and Prevent, should be considering what our response to that is. And I'm not sure we know what the answer to that question is. It's just, I mention it here just because I'm here, but actually it's a challenge I'm putting out to all the Prevent boards on the sort of next circuit for a discussion about what the response might be. But I thought, as obviously a council-led group, it might be worth mentioning, and it's something, council, that I'll be bringing up at the next council and network meeting in February. Probably changing the agenda because obviously we had one item, but I think this is probably more important to discuss. So I just wanted to mention that while I'm here.
Thanks, Ian. Is there something we need to pick up about that then, or is that just
I think it's just to make people aware. I think it's just to make people aware and to think, because I think it can easily just drift, if you like. I think it's something that as officers need to think about at that operational level. What does that mean? And then that'll feed up through the system, I would imagine, in due course. But I do think it's a worthy conversation to have at our next portfolio holders meeting in February.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Any other questions for Ian? No? Okay, thanks for coming in. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, which is our Safe Communities Performance, Q2, pages 13 to 19. Over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Chair. The paper has been circulated. It's just a quick reminder that the raw data underpinning the report's available online on an interactive dashboard, which breaks the data down into district level. The report outlines broad trends. So just a reminder that the performance can vary quite drastically more locally, and districts need to bear that in mind when reading the report. I'd have to say in summary that there's nothing exceptional in the report, and it rather follows the trend of previous reports over the last few quarters. And in fact, there's been very little movement since the last report. Most of the indicators are stable and they remain stable, and those key performance indicators that were on the rise have actually started to level off. And taking each report area in turn, in relation to crime, total crime has levelled off for the last 3 quarters. Burglary rates are stable. Residential burglary is slightly down. Commercial burglary is slightly up, but neither of those figures are statistically significant. Vehicle offence rates have been on a bit of a roller coaster. They had been coming down. They started to go up again in the middle of last year, but now have stabilised, and we're broadly speaking at the same level as we were last year for vehicle offences. Violence with injury rates, you'll probably remember that those have been increasing quite steadily over quite a lengthy period of time, in fact the last 2 years, but the rates now started to level off over the last 2 quarters, so it started to plateau. Reducing offending and re-offending as an area of key performance. The data there hasn't changed from the last report. That data is collected in arrears, but broadly speaking, the data is positive, just as a reminder. Repeat victimisation of vulnerable victims, the MARAT rate remains the same as the previous report at 37%. DA services, the data, we had an input from Deborah Cunningham from Public Health at the last board, and you'll be aware that commissioning of DA services is now it's split between Public Health and the OPCC, and there'll be reports coming separately from each of those areas to future boards to cover that particular area. That said, there are still a number of indicators on the dashboard in relation to domestic abuse, and broadly speaking, they're following the same trends and what had been previous rises are levelling off. That generally seems to be the theme for this particular report. In relation to ASB and satisfaction, ASB survey data is showing a decline in satisfaction, and rather counter to that, the actual data around incident reporting, both to the police and on Sentinel, is showing a decrease. So that's a bit counterintuitive. And the last area, preventing terrorism and radicalisation, the only data that we collate in relation to this is hate crime reports. They are relatively stable, but in very low numbers. That is a summary of the report, Chair.
Thanks, Rick. And I'd urge everyone in their districts to go onto the dashboard and see their data themselves. I just want to pick up about burglaries. Obviously, coming up to Christmas, everyone's getting their new stuff that they put out their boxes for recycling and stuff like that. Are we doing some comms about, not putting on display what you've got for Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly make some inquiries in relation to that, but I've no doubt there'll be a Christmas campaign, but I'm not personally aware of it, but I can certainly find out and circulate that to board members.
Perfect, thank you. Is there any questions for Rick? No? Okay, thanks, Rick. It all seems fairly stable. I had a quick look at the dashboard. It all seems fairly stable, so that's really good. Good news, there's no spikes, is there?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to item 8, which is the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner's update. And I think Asad is here. I think I saw him.
Yep, thank you, Chair.
Okay, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Sajid Afshio, PCC. I'm attending on behalf of Claire, who would normally attend, or Siobhan. So I'm going to try and paraphrase some of this. One of the main updates is probably around the Safer Streets grant that we were awarded. So the initial amount that we bid for was 600k. We've been told that we've got this year 1 funding, but potentially year 2 is under question at the moment. So we're just waiting to find out what happens in regards to that. The VRN is going to be mostly affected by this, I think, because they put a lot of their requests for the projects in year 2. So I think for year 1 they're only likely to get approximately about 60k if this is the situation. So hopefully we're kind of hoping that it potentially works out. Sorry, I've got something in my throat, so it's just affecting me a little bit. In terms of the CSP, we've got over 70 projects that we're currently tracking and increasing. We're going to renew the Victims First contract with 2.5 million. The incumbent provider, Catch-22, will continue to deliver the victim support services with additional outreach, and including outreach and specific offer to under 25 victims of crime. We've started work on a new target hardening contract as well. Caitlin from commissioning is leading with this. Both the adult and children's young SARC are coming up for procurement in 2025. These contracts are procured alongside with funding from NHS England. The Children and Young Person SARC is funded across East Midlands. It's currently located in Nottingham, Northamptonshire. Due to the local authority footprint size and the specialist nature of the services provided, the OPCC will be working with this next year. We're also working in partnership with Public Health Leicester and Leicestershire Bereavement by Suicide. This programme is going to link into recent implemented layers of policing and provide a unique offer of support to individuals and families affected by death and suicide. Also reviewing the Community Safety Partnership Framework. We've, as you're all aware, that we revamped it earlier in the year. We're looking at ways in which we can try and improve this, particularly for partners, just to try and reduce some of the paperwork that's involved, particularly around the contracts. I think the main area of concern is primarily around Safer Streets. So as we said, we were granted approximately just under £1 million, approximately 300,000 for Melton, 300,000 for Oadby and Wigston, and the VRN, their Vogue bid was approximately 300,000. So we should have an idea in terms of whether we're going to get year 2 or not. Hopefully by the end of December, we're thinking early January time, and it's subject to potentially the police pay award that happens as well. So we haven't really been given a reason in terms of why, even though we were initially told we were successful, why year 2 is suddenly a bit of a question mark, but it's caused quite a significant amount of headache for us in terms of the delivery plan. So I was one of the leads in terms of helping form that. And when we've put in the initial bid, obviously we're doing so under the assumption that we've got the whole 18 months, and we're obviously trying to work with partners with that type of alignment. But when it comes to them potentially throwing a spanner in the works, saying plan for not getting year 2 as well, it just kind of makes delivery a little bit difficult, particularly with partners. So we've just had to quickly adjust all our contracts around that as well, and obviously kind of work with our delivery partners to try and I suppose condense the work within this short period of time, because the contract was actually released to us a lot later as well. I think those are the main updates, if anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Sergeant. I feel your pain as well. I'm exactly the same today with my throat and my voice. So yeah, I'm trying not to cough as well. Just a couple from me. The referral, the sexual assault referral centres, the SARCs, coming up for procurement in 2025. Is there any chance that we're going to get one in Leicestershire? Because for these young people to travel to Nottingham and Northampton after they've been a victim of sexual assault is not great at all. So is there plans for that, to have one locally for them?
So sorry, Chair, is that for within the city centre? Sorry,
either city or county. I just think these kids are having to travel to Nottingham or Northampton after they've been through a traumatic event. It's not good enough, isn't it? So will you be looking to get a SARC centre for children and young people within Leicester or Leicestershire?
I don't. I have to apologise. I don't have the answer for that, but I will take it away for you, and I'll ask the question to our SMT, and I could come back with an answer. So we're looking at effectively whether we can have that here with a city or county.
Yeah, and I think we should be seriously looking at that rather than Nottingham and Northampton. And just my second point on the community safety partnerships grants. Obviously, I think we had back last meeting about some of the difficulties for their partnerships to access that money. Do you know how much of the funding has been spent so far for this allocation for this year?
Yeah, so the total budget amount that we give across all of the areas is about 639,000 approximately. We've spent, I would say, approximately about 70% of that. The amount, maybe a little bit over. From the top of my memory, I think we have approximately 140,000 left. That's if you divide it across all the areas, I think, give or take. So I think there's a possibility that there may be an underspend. And if you recall, the original plan was always the case of if there is an underspend, we give it back to the CSPs, we don't pocket that. So what I'm potentially going to do is if there is an underspend, I'll present it to our SMT, ask them in terms of how they'd like to reinvest it. So it might be the fact that they identify key themes that they feel we're deficient in, that obviously we've made promises to against the police and crime plan, and things that we probably kind of rag rated a little bit amber or red in terms of we've not put enough of that out there. So it might be the fact that it's defined with a theme. It may not be. I don't know. I think it's going to be one of those discussions we have a little bit later, depending on how much we have left. But yeah, I'd say it's under 200, but it's about 140, I think 150 from memory.
Okay. So they have been claiming the money. That was my concern, that the CSPs were not actually claiming the money back. So you've got till April. So I suppose the plea is out for the CSPs. If you've got a project that you want to do, get your bid in to spend the rest of that money. Les.
Thanks, Chair. So Sarge, just picking up on bullet 5. Excuse me, the referral mechanism, and I'd say at the bottom of the paragraph it says you'll look with widening that in due course. I'm just curious because you've got the police in there, you've got victim support in there, and therefore this is where people are already a known victim. I'm just wondering if the fire service should be in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at renewing the contract. It's up for expiry in March, and Caitlin, who's in commissioning, she's basically leading with trying to tighten that contract up. So my understanding is, I think it's a contract that's always been auto-renewed every year, and we were just trying to extract a bit more value from it. So we've realised that perhaps we're being charged a bit more than we think is probably reasonable. So we're trying to just tighten that up a little bit. But we can, there's a lot of, as we've investigated how this contract's been set up, there is a lot of overlap between like internal teams as well within the force. So we have like in the force there's a crime reduction team, and it seems like there's multiple avenues for referrals, but sometimes they're not always kind of talking to each other, and they like the crime surprise surprise, and the crime prevention team wasn't even aware that they could potentially refer into this process either. So I get hold of target hardening for these measures. So we're just trying to tighten up the whole process and try to create a bit of a singular way. But I don't think there'll be any objection to, obviously, the fire service if they've identified victims, if that's what you're suggesting, and then potentially making referrals as well.
Was the LRFS work closely with the community safety partnerships. And some of their work is about home safety, home security. So for me, that would be a sensible referral route to be in at the beginning, because they already are out there looking at home safety and home security and listening for those other, little messages that we don't necessarily know, because those referral mechanisms are people who are already been affected, they're already victims. We actually will need to consider the prevention or identifying victims before they become victims, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think one of the criteria is, even though they may not have reported a crime itself, if they perceive themselves to be a victim, they can still make a referral. So I'll have a chat with Caitlin, as she's the one that's effectively drawing up this new contract, and I'll just highlight the fact that obviously we want to include the fire service in that as well.
There's just been a comment in the chat from the fire service, and they already have a link that they'll take it up with you offline.
Okay, brilliant.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Any other questions for Saj? No. Okay. Thanks very much for coming, Saj. Okay, we'll move on to item 10, Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Service update. So Ben, I think you're taking us through this. So over to you.
Lovely, thank you. Good morning. Happy to take that conversation offline as well regarding the contract and referrals, etc. So good morning to you. Just take you through probably 7 or 8 minutes of the report that I've provided, and then obviously answer any questions that link into the work that we're doing. One of the sort of areas of key priority is in paragraph 5 around our home fire safety checks, which Councillor Fillmore's just sort of alluded to as well. So since April 2023 up to and including October, we've conducted over 9,000 home safety checks in those premises, which gives us really good access. Thank you very much. So it gives us really good access into homes. So we're at 67% already. So we will complete and go further than that 13,200 targets. Of those, about a quarter of them with our most vulnerable in society, and this means multiple visits, and this can be with adult social care and with other partners, and this builds sort of that rapport where we're trying to build that community resilience as well if we can. In paragraph 8, you'll notice the 486 road traffic collisions so far this year, which, as you can see, is quite a significant increase on our 3-year average year to date of 387. Unfortunately, 13 of those, we have 13 fatalities so far this year. So this is a key area of work for us next year. We're conducting a number of different campaigns in partnership with the Road Safety Partnership and linking in across the county. As well as the prevention activities, we also look at protection. This is protection of the built environment. So in paragraphs 11 through to 14 inclusive, we've conducted over 750 audits at premises, and this is off the back of our risk-based inspection programme, something we conduct. We're doing it currently with a view of completing it by the end of January, so ready for the next financial year. And this takes into account a number of different factors, including past history of premises, to try to protect those premises and the individuals either living in them or working in them throughout Leicester, Leicestershire, Rutland. So of those 750, 87 have required further action plans. This is where we continue to engage with the responsible persons to remind them of their duties that they need to undertake in protecting people in those premises. On occasion, we identify as a result of that risk-based inspection programme conducting the audit, there's an immediate risk to life, and that's where we'll serve a prohibition notice. It may be on some, a part or all of the building. So far between April and October, it's 29 prohibition notices. Haven't included in there the figures, they're not necessarily relevant necessarily at this point, that sometimes from those prohibitions we might have continued non-engagement from that responsible person, and that's where we look at enforcement activity, and that enforcement activity can on occasion lead to multiple people being required to be what's classed as decanted. If you notice in paragraph 14, the major decants protocol. Major decants protocol has come about from the Grenfell Tower inquiry. This has come from the Home Office and the Fire and Rescue Service working together to identify when we conduct an audit or we're notified of a concern by individuals, we may need to go to a high-rise building. Okay, so this is buildings of 5 stories or above. However, we do also have a number of flats within LLR that might have a number of 2-story flats or maisonette style flats that actually they've all got the same issue. So the elements that are contained in the major decants protocol might actually be pertinent there as well. And that's something we'll be looking at working in 24 through to 25 with partner agencies to say early communication, early consideration. This might be the route that we're going down as the Fire and Rescue Service. How do we work together to manage those individuals that may be required to evacuate whilst activities undertaken? So this is in a proactive measure rather than a reactive. So it's not some sort of a element of alarmism. It's just puts in place those processes in the planning stage rather than reacting. And it's always on a Friday night at 4:30 that these things start to occur. The next one for you is in paragraphs 15 through to 18. We're seeing internationally a significant rise in electric scooter fires, hoverboard fires, these types of elements. I'll put in the chat in a short while just a link to a little 2-page leaflet that we've got, which we'll start to include in our home safety checks as we go around to premises, to houses. Notably in LLR this year already, we've had 1 fatality due to an electric battery fire, as in that was the cause of the fire, and another domestic property fire where 2 individuals were rescued and had significant injuries that took months to recover from, but they were rescued and they have recovered. So what we're trying to sort of do is pass around, especially to sort of partner agencies that might be going in with housing inspectors, etc., to actually consider what we can do in that environment, especially in terms of managing this risk. The final section just wanted to note out was paragraph 20. Unwanted fire signals for us means that we can't actually send those appliances and vehicles to other incidents because we're attending a false alarm incident. There has been quite a sharp increase in that since the 3-year average of 1,763. We're working to try to identify premises that are our sort of repeat callers. We work with them directly with our fire protection inspecting officers, but it is also something as a reminder for local management that if we do have the same smoke alarm going off, the stuff that can be done locally to try to reduce down that risk. So collectively, we're working together to try to reduce that so we can send appliances to where the emergencies actually are. I'm happy to take any questions on the paper.
Thanks, Ben. Just a couple from me about the road traffic collisions, because I've kind of noticed you see a lot more stuff on social media about accidents. Have we got any data about what might be causing that? Is it drink, drugs, just bad driving? Have we got anything, any themes coming through?
The Road Safety Partnership is quite a wide-ranging set of data about where they're occurring, what type of vehicles they are, and I think that's what we're going to focus on next year, about targeted campaigns. So looking at those underlying reasons, an example could be we work with the young farmers over in the east of the county after receiving some information about their driving activities. So actually targeting that work is actually seeing a bit more of a benefit rather than a blanket approach. And I think that's what we need to do, to be fair, is to get a bit more nuanced with our range of options and what's working, what's not, evaluate that work, and then say, actually, this is how we improve it. That's where we're going to drive the next sort of set of work next year.
And just my second point before I go to others with questions about the electrical charging and the more and more use of vapes and things like this is just getting more and more common, isn't it? So did I read there you're looking at pushing for legislation about improved standards, and we work with East Midlands Airport about vapes coming through the airport from overseas and stuff. But I suppose what can we do as a collective across Leicestershire and Rutland to highlight the issues of these and stop these fires that are happening? Is there anything we could do collectively that will support that?
Just in terms of the sort of legislation, so the National Fire Chiefs Council is pushing that agenda, as well as electrical safety. There's a number of other groups that are pushing that through. In terms of trade-in standards, we work closely with through our fire investigation team. There's also the Office of Products, a governmental department that they want to know the information, so we get serial numbers, make, model, etc. I think in the absence of legislation, it allows online selling of non-officially endorsed merchandise, etc. And that's sort of where the issue is. I think the bit that we can maybe do as partnerships is just look at if we've got housing stock, for argument's sake, or if we've got joint flats, homes. So for argument's sake, even in residential care homes, if we've got electric powered scooters and they're stored in the hallway, these are the sort of areas. We've recently had someone that's looked at doing some renovation at a care home, and they were suggesting to build the external storage of these, which was a great idea. However, it's a wooden external storage that was adjoined to the building. So it's just those bits that actually, could you build it that side, which gives some separation between the building and the storage. So it's just, I think it's an awareness piece, first of all. And once that awareness piece is there, individuals seem to go, well, I'll do this then. But that's what we're trying to sort of push out a lot more, hence this, what I've just put in the chat as well. But happy to chat to people outside of here as well, if you think, how could I weave this into, my staff or my areas of business.
You're on mute.
Five questions coming your way now. So that first one, Les.
Thanks, Deb. It's bizarre, isn't it? Because I've just looked at your leaflet, and there's a bizarre irony that we're in a world where we're having to explain to people who are using e-scooters on the roads illegally how to charge them properly or safely. So there's a weird irony there. But picking up on the same point that the chair picked up with on the RTCs, I would love to see what that analysis suggests is actually what the underlying causes are when it's done. And I find it fascinating because we know during COVID lockdown, the RTCs that the police were experiencing and you guys were higher impact speeds because the roads were clear and therefore people could drive faster. And on a personal level, I see some most bizarre driver behaviour out there nowadays that is absolutely linked to post-COVID. And I have no idea why. I don't know what's going on. But there's just this really sort of, I guess I'm in my own world, driving behaviour that, I don't know. So I'll be really fascinated to see what the outputs of that analysis looks like, Ben, because, you're talking about knocking on the door, what, 28% increase? That's monumental. So we have to get on top of this one way or another. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Les. Christine.
I'm afraid I'm going on about the RTCs as well. I think in Rutland we had a statistic that the age profile was changing. So we were going from predominantly young, inexperienced drivers to some of our more elderly drivers. And I'd be very interested in looking at that. As public transport reduces, I do wonder if we're actually forcing people to keep cars, or whether we have a generation coming through who are continuing to drive who really shouldn't be. And in many ways, as well as a communication strategy, there might be a health strategy there, because I know a number of my friends have got elderly parents and they say they really shouldn't be driving. I wish the doctor would have a word with them. And we need to think about how we communicate with those people, because in the same way as Les is saying about some of the bizarre driving, we've got some people out there driving very, very quickly, and the elderly drivers don't cope with that. And so I think it might need a slightly different mindset to how we tackle it.
Just if I can, just to come back on both that and pick up on Councillor Fillmore's comment as well around the analysis. I think that's where working with the Road Safety Partnership as the hub of doing this, to then decide where best these messages need to be communicated. I think that's the piece of work we need to do rather than just react. So we are taking that into consideration, just to give you some assurance.
I know, Christine, as well, in Leicestershire, we do a driver's little course as well for older drivers that they can pay to have done. So I don't know if Rutland do that, but it might be something as a partnership we can push out a little bit more. They just have a little test just to check how they're driving and stuff as they get older. But no, I think I agree with you that lots of people, especially in Rutland, that are isolated, are keeping their cars far longer than they probably should if there's no public transport. So I think it's a really good point. Neil.
Thanks, Chair. Ben, I'm going to carry on with the theme of the RTCs. And I was just, my angle was looking at the 3-year average and wondering about the year of lockdown 2020. Is that now within that 3-year average, or are we moving away from that? But if it is included, were there a lot less RTCs during 2020 because of the lockdown?
I'd have to come back to you with some real detailed elements, but as a rule, we are moving away from that. I think what we are seeing is even just from the 2 years, there is an increase, and it's the high speed nature of it still there in terms of 13 fatalities, 261 injured persons. The other bit as well is there's the last 2 or 3 years has been more research done around what type of campaigns work and what don't work. And I think that's a piece of work, without going too far into it right now, to say, actually, we need a varied response. We don't need a shock and awe sort of approach to everything, because it's as we've spoken about with in the east, in Rutland, if they are continuing to drive for those periods, actually you need a different approach.
Yes, okay, good, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Liz.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo the comments that have also been made. With regard to the older drivers course, I didn't know about it. I do know about the younger drivers one. My children have been on it. It's been really good, so I will be looking into that. I had heard about the Biker Down course and the Do It for Dave, but I haven't seen any on social media, in the media at all, about accessing those courses since it was launched at the bike show. And I just wondered if there was a plan for like a social media campaign to raise awareness of that.
There is, and it is already out there. What I'll do is put some links in there just shortly after my presentation here. That's not a problem.
Thank you very much.
What I would say is we've had a large uptick in people wanting to get onto it as a result of the Do It for Dave already. We were averaging sort of 15 to 18 on each course, and then the next one that's running has got 27 on it already, and we've got a bit of a waiting list for next year, so much so that we're putting 2 other volunteers onto the next couple of campaigns to deal with that spike. So at least it's reaching the people we need to, but I will share some of the links on here.
Thank you.
Batshaw.
Yeah, I've just put a link in there to the main website, but if you go on the County Council website, I don't know if it's on there as well, but you might find it there. I know they were promoting it last year. Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. My question's around e-scooters and charging of batteries and getting this comms and awareness to those local authorities with housing stock. I would say Chief Housing Officer Group is probably an effective way of getting those messages to those tenants. I was wondering if you had representation or access to that group.
Yeah, so our fire protection officers do some shared training with those housing officers groups so that they're spotting things, if you like, that then could be escalated to ourselves if we need to do that audit. As part of that training, we will roll out around the safe storage access, because it's not, the e-scooters is a key area, because especially at this time of year, Christmas sort of coming up, there might be presents for individuals, but also it's the e-bikes. And generally, people that have e-bikes have multiple batteries because they want to swap them in and out. And that's another issue for us. So again, articulating that through to something like the Chief Housing Officers Group is going to be crucial next year.
And finally, Darren.
Thank you, Chair. All right, Ben.
Hello.
So back to the RTC again. So I know that COVID has skewed a lot of figures. We would say we've had a sharp uptick, but how does that compare to pre-COVID figures and averages there? And also, obviously, I think people have asked for more breakdown, as in the demographics of people involved in these accidents, but also geographically. Sorry, is it in one location? Is it major roads, minor roads, and that kind of stuff as well would be useful.
Okay, no, not a problem. If it's something that the group wish me to do, I can provide a bit more detail in the next report with a couple of appendices. But in terms of, we have got a very transient nature with regards to the M1, the M6, the A42. Yesterday, we had 8 hybrid vehicles on fire, which caused 5 to 7 miles of tailback. And we also have travelling, obviously, from the A1 coming into the county as well. So I think that's one of our, how do we do that education piece with groups that are coming in and out from all over the country? I think that's a challenge to us. But outside of that, Darren, I think we've also got pockets of activity, sort of the northwest of the county, and again over to the east, where we have our higher speed impacts. So again, that's tailored compared to the inner city or within the ring road. If it's just to summarise, the answer is that we really need to use what's already there in the Road Safety Partnership, and look at the campaigns that we can do, and then who can do those on with us. So we are a partner at that Road Safety Partnership, not leading on it. However, I do think I can provide some more breakdown at the next report for the Safer Community Strategy Board, if that's something we wish.
Thank you. The Police and Crime Panel yesterday did pick up on the Road Partnership as well, wanted a little bit more information what the police are doing. And incidentally, as I got back from the city and got my car from the park and ride, I bumped into Jonathan Clarkson, who's the lead for the Road Safety Partnership. So I had a little chat with him as well and raised it with him. So I think everyone is aware, but obviously there's a need for more information here. That would be great. Les, did you want to come back?
Just closing this one off, I think, Deb, if I'm going to embarrass Ben, that was an excellent Q&A session, Ben. Thank you very much.
No problem. I'm glad it was helpful. I think I wasn't trying to be deliberately evasive about what we're going to do, but I'm just very keen that the Road Safety Partnership lead, and we're contributing towards it, if that makes sense. But it's just to say that we are on it.
I just think your knowledge is extraordinary, and your ability to answer questions you have no idea about is just astonishing. Well done.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thanks, Les. Thanks, Ben, for coming. There's no more questions for you, so you're off the hook now. Okay, I've had a message that Bob Bean, who was doing our probation service updates, had to go off to deal with an urgent operational issue. So we'll park that for now and get him to come back at our next meeting in March. So we'll move on to item 12, the Community Safety Agreement, and this is for you, Rick, pages 49 to 52.
Thank you, Chair. A quick reprise for the board. The Community Safety Agreement, Leicestershire County Council are required to produce a Community Safety Agreement. It's a statutory document and set out in legislation. In broad terms, the Community Safety Agreement sets out shared crime and disorder priorities across statutory partners and the strategies that they're adopting to support their local communities. Also, in a two-tier local authority such as ours, there's a county strategy group that's required to oversee that, and of course that is this board. The purpose of bringing this community safety agreement to the board today is that within the legislation there is a requirement to regularly review the community safety agreement, and that's the reason that I've brought it to the board today, so that we can review it and make sure that you're happy with the format and the makeup of that document. There has been a previous presentation to the board outlining an undertaking by myself within the community safety team to undertake routine maintenance of that document, and that is to ensure that links and references to various documents within the community safety agreement remain valid and are kept up to date. And I've taken the opportunity to update within the report in relation to what work has been undertaken in relation to that. So the format of the document is an online document with various links, in fact numerous links, that link to the various local strategies and various toolkits that those reading the community safety agreement can use as reference with regards to work that can be undertaken. I have referenced within the report the various changes that I've also made to the document, and I'd like the board to please come back to me with any changes that they would like to have made to the document, or in fact confirm to me that they're happy with the document continuing in its current format. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Rick. Any comments or questions from anybody? Christine.
Can I just say, probably my naivety, it's the first time I'd looked at it and I thought it was an excellent document. I really thought it pulled together information that I just thought it was excellent, and I just wanted to say that it's a real yeah. So I'm sorry I haven't seen it before. I'm glad I have now.
It is a really useful document, all on one page, all those links there. Yeah, and I think you get these documents sometimes and then half the links don't work. So I know Rick does work hard to make sure all the links stay working for us all. Les.
It's simple. I think the format works incredibly well. Why change something that is effective and efficient and it's good?
Thank you.
Happy to note it and support it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments from anybody? And obviously the new bits that have been added in as well, I think are quite relevant. So yeah, no, really good. So the board's asked to note the contents of the report and approve the continued use of the community safety agreement in its current format. We're all happy to do that? Brilliant, thank you. On to item 13. Any other business from anybody? No, and the date of the next meeting is Friday the 22nd of March at 10 o'clock. And your Christmas present from me is 50 minutes time back. And I apologise again for my throat, but I managed to make it through. I shall be speaking for the rest of the day now. So thank you very much for your time today, and I'll have a great Christmas, and I'll see you all in the new year.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
Merry Christmas.
Hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.